year ago, Audi introduced the all-electric e-Tron SUV. It had all the usual qualities that we've come to expect from an Audi product. Very impressive build quality, all the latest tech and luxury features, and it was the perfect size. A little bit smaller than a Q7, but a little bit larger than a Q5. Now, as the industry continues to move toward SUVs and electrification, Audi is introducing Chapter 2 of the e-Tron family in the form of this 2021 e-Tron Sportback. It takes everything that we liked about the regular e-Tron SUV and puts atop a sleeker coupe-like body. It gives you more range from its 95 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and it's one of the best-looking all-electric SUVs on the market, I feel, especially when you guys have it painted in this shade of plasma blue and this very rare Edition 1 model, which Audi will only import about 200 of these to the US for 2020. And the big question I want to answer, if you guys are in the market for a new all-electric SUV and you demand the best build quality from a reputable German brand, how does the new e-Tron Sportback stack up? That's what we're here to find out. Hey guys, before we get started on the review, I'm going to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Custom Street Racing 2, or CSR2 for short. Now, as most of you guys can probably guess, my love affair for cars started when I was a kid by playing all those racing games, and CSR2 sets a new standard in visuals. It delivers hyper-real drag racing to the palm of your hands. You can compete against live players from across the world with your custom-built supercars. I'm talking about supercars and hypercars, of course, like the LaFerrari, McLaren P1, Koenigsegg, and so many others. In the game, you can team up with friends to form a crew, tune your rides for maximum speed, and dominate the competition in global crew events. And you can download it for free and start racing now by clicking on the link below. CSR2 is also holding an American road trip event, which will be running from June 26 until September 29, and it's a celebration of American car culture from coast to coast on every road trip. Every day is a different story, exploring a car, location, or talent linking to the in-game events. CSR2 has also received its first NASCAR, and you can check that out by clicking on the link below. The car was designed with a NASCAR core and a CSR2 touch. It's the perfect car to add character to your collection. It'll be one of the fastest cars in the game, offering higher performance, and it can be earned as a prize car for completing the final event. Now, when I'm not doing these reviews, I find CSR2 to be an amazing way to pass the time, especially if you're stuck in the car during road trips when you're not driving. So if you guys are looking for a new fun racing game to play, be sure to click on the link below to download it. So I want to first clarify the fact that this one that I'm showing you here is technically a 2020 model. Audi's had a very short production run of 2020 models. Today, if you go to an Audi dealership, you'll buy a 2021 model, but you cannot buy this Edition 1 trim, which is basically a fully loaded prestige model with this special plasma blue color, the special wheels. We'll talk about that as we go later on into the walk around. Now, the first thing I do want to mention about the e-Tron is the fact that, look at this thing. I think it's a really attractive looking SUV. It has all the usual Audi trademark styling design touches here. This one here, of course, being the fully loaded prestige trim, includes the Matrix design full LED headlights. Now in Europe, if you guys get the Matrix design headlights, it'll actually show you a really cool animation with the e-Tron logo that it projects onto the road. However, because of the silly regulations that we have in America, that just doesn't show up here in the States. You can't have it show you those, directions with turn-by-turn directions in the headlights. Instead, it just does the little design when the vehicle is parked. So hopefully Audi will be able to import that to the States whenever the US regulations finally catch up. As you can see, the rest of the styling, of course, you have the Audi single frame grille. It is enclosed in the e-Tron models because it's an electric car. There's no internal combustion engine. You don't need the air. And you can see here a lot of the silver accents is included on the prestige trim. No fog lights. Instead, you have a functional air intake vent there that creates an air skirt or curtain over the wheels. And overall, in this plasma blue color, I think that the Sportback looks pretty much identical to the SUV, but if you guys don't like the look of something like those Tesla SUVs or the Jaguar I-Pace, the e-Tron definitely, I think, is one of the best looking of the new electric SUVs. Now, of course, looking at the rest of the side profile, clearly you can tell that Audi is going after the BMW X6 and the Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. However, unlike those vehicles which are gas-powered, this is all electric. There is no gas version or hybrid of this car, but like the regular e-Tron, this is a well-sized vehicle. At 195 inches long, the overall length actually didn't change. Its wheelbase is around 115 inches long. Compared to something like the Audi Q7, this is about 6 inches shorter, but it's also about 7 inches longer than the Q5. So this technically is the mid-size SUV, two-row SUV that Audi doesn't offer as a gas car, but they offer it as an all-electric SUV. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see This one here, being the Edition 1, has these specific wheels. These are a 21-inch wheel. You can see very nice black inner spoke with the metallic silver finish. It also has these orange painted brake calipers. It almost looks like it's an e-Tron S, which, by the way, there is an e-Tron S coming in Europe that's been confirmed. Hasn't been confirmed yet for America. That's the higher performance version, which of course we'll talk about for a later video. Now, this being an electric SUV, obviously you're probably wanting to know where's the charge port for this vehicle. You can see Audi puts it on the driver's side as standard. For 2021, they actually made a passenger side port available as an option. That's actually an industry first. Teslas, for example, and most other electric cars only have one charge port. However, if you guys go for this fully loaded version of the e-Tron, Audi offers 2 charge ports on either side of the vehicle. So that's a very nice convenience that honestly I'm surprised other manufacturers haven't, caught on to adding. Now, looking at here at the roof line, you can see that sloping roof does eat into the overall space, but it actually doesn't lose that much space compared to the regular Sportback, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I really like the sleek proportions of this. Now, again, some of you really don't like these coupe-like SUVs. I didn't like them at first, but you have to admit this is slightly more distinctive looking versus the regular e-Tron, which the one I had last year was a little bit plain Jane, especially when you had it painted in kind of like a silver color. Now you can see at the rear, the styling pretty much carries over. You have the signature Audi full LED taillights, which offer an animation. They're technically a matrix design LED taillight as well. The animation means that if I lock and unlock the car, it'll kind of do the little dance with the LEDs. That's very much an Audi signature thing. Down here, you can see more silver accents and obviously no visible exhaust tips, but you do have these nicely integrated parking sensors. And overall, let me know what you think of the styling of this. Do you prefer this over the regular e-Tron? Because I think the Sportback actually is pretty sleek looking. Now, opening up the cargo area, despite the fact that this car has that sloping roof, you don't actually lose that much cargo capacity. And I think that Audi has done the Sportback design right, because when you open up the trunk, you get around 23.5 cubic feet of space. That's only a reduction of about 1.5 cubic feet over the regular e-Tron, which really surprised me. If you fold down those seats, you get around 55 cubic feet of space. It loses about 2 cubic feet versus the regular e-Tron. So again, you're not really making too many compromises in the cargo area for the much sleeker design. So obviously the exterior of the e-Tron is very striking, but what about the interior? This is the whole reason why you decided to buy an Audi over a Tesla. And if you guys watch my previous video on the regular e-Tron, you'll know that this is full of all the latest technology, luxury, and build quality that we've come to expect from the Audi brand. And this Edition 1 version that I'm sitting in only takes it up to another level. As you can see at a glance, this interior is very reminiscent of all the other Audis that I've shown you before. You have their latest MMI touch display here. You've got 3 screens, their virtual cockpit here, and then 2 screens here, a 10-inch screen here and an 8.6-inch screen here. I love the Monaco blue interior that matches the plasma blue exterior that my particular tester has, because it's the Edition 1 model. The Edition 1 model also includes these LED projector puddle lights that will kind of shine right there, which you could see at night. It will actually say Edition 1 to let you know you've got the special version of this car. But let me shut the door really quick. It has a nice solid thunk to it. In fact, the door also includes a soft close feature. So all you have to do is basically just tap the door and it'll suck itself back to shut it completely. And the key fob for the vehicle is the typical Audi key fob. As you can see here, it's a nice slim design. It's made with metal, some piano black plastic. It feels good, it looks good. I like how small it is, like I said. To start the car up, they put the button down here over by the shifter. And remember, this car is all electric, so you're not going to get any kind of starter noise. There's no noise at all. All it says is ready right there in the instrument panel when it lets you know this car is ready to be driven. As you can see here with the 2 displays, there is a fair amount of glare on the screens that I'm seeing here from being the sunroof open and of course just the windows in general. It doesn't look quite as bad in person versus in camera or on the screen here, but as you can see here, my tester also includes the wireless Apple CarPlay, and it does look fantastic here on the bigger 10.25-inch screen. It's very snappy, it's responsive. It also works fairly well. This is much better than the last Audi I was in, which was an R8, which had the older system, which put the CarPlay over here on the virtual cockpit display. I really like having the 3 screens here. It's just a nice addition, of course. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, I mean, if you guys like to rag on Tesla for their, shoddy build quality, you're gonna love this Audi. You can see there's real stitching here on the upper part of the dashboard here, soft touch injection molded plastic there, soft soft touch here, although I wish it was actually fully leather stitched. I love the blue leather that you find here on the door panels with the stitching, the nice gray suede Alcantara, these metal window controls, which also feel very expensive. They're high quality tactile feel. You have power mirror controls, they're power folding mirrors. Love the metal trim for the door handles here. And then the steering wheel, as you can see, it's a power tilt telescoping design, which is great. The steering wheel itself, it's not the Audi Sport steering wheel that you'd find like with a flat bottom. There is an e-Tron S coming, which hasn't been confirmed yet for the US. I like the virtual cockpit display here, which if you want, you can change the way this looks by pushing this view button here. You can kind of go into your music settings here, your phone, and then of course you can put the GPS over there if you'd like with the virtual cockpit. It's all very nice, very high tech, very modern. Over here on the two displays here, when you put the car into reverse, you can see there is a nice backup camera right there, which is great. This gives you 360, which is also great. You have like a top-down view if you'd like. It has parking sensors front and rear. This is all, of course, going to be very reminiscent if you guys have been in an Audi product before. The black plastic here actually does resist fingerprints, but you do see a fair amount of dust in there, which can be a little bit annoying. Down here, there's a separate screen, of course, that allows you to adjust your climate controls. The climate control system has an air fragrance system that wafts a fragrance, a perfume that smells great. If you go into the settings here, you can adjust the fragrance to how strong you'd like it to be or how subtle you'd like it to be. There's a winter and a summer selection. The winter one's my favorite. It smells really good. The seats, as you can see here, they adjust in like 18 different ways. They offer a massage function. They're heated and cooled. So good luck trying to find the massaging seats in a Tesla. You can see there's two-person memory on the driver and on the passenger side. When you want to access the massage, there's a button here on the seats. When you just push that button, you can see here Audi offers a choice between, it looks like 7 different levels of massage. You can also change the intensity. They work really well. This is basically on par with the best from Mercedes, the best from BMW, of course, the best from Volvo. This is all, of course, very nice. If you want to go back to the Audi system here, you can see this is the Audi GPS, which does include their virtual cockpit, which is Google Earth. You can also put the GPS over here in the screen right in front of you. So I like how Audi gives you all those options. Some of the best in the industry. Audi also has a bunch of interchangeable mood lighting here. You can kind of customize that by going into your vehicle settings, whatnot. This touch screen is very snappy. It's very responsive. It works well. I have very little complaints to there. There's a drive mode selector over here. If you want, you can adjust it between an individual mode, a dynamic mode, a comfort mode, an automatic mode, and an efficiency mode. This is also what's gonna control the air suspension. This car will raise and lower itself based on whatever drive mode you have it in. So of course, that's all very important. Your heated and cooled seat control is over here. Audi also lets you turn on both the heat and the cooled function at the same time, which is nice. This is for the Audi pre-safe. You can turn it on and off there, adjust the levels of interference. There's your volume knob over here. The gear shifter is this very strange console thing here where there's like an area where you can rest your hand, but this is the only part that moves. Kick it all the way back for drive, kick it all the way forward for reverse, and then push this P button here to go to park. There's also a sport mode there, in addition to the dynamic mode over here. There's a wireless phone charger down here with more cup holders, some more storage, and then over here, you can see that's a relatively small center console. I've already filled it up with my keys, my sunglasses, my wallet, so it's a little bit on the smaller side. The glove compartment here you can see is big. It's damped, it's lined with felt. This car has a surprising amount of storage, and I also love the big panoramic sunroof. So if you guys are looking for that feature as well, Audi is including that. So overall, this interior is very much the same that we like from the regular e-Tron and other Audi products. I love the real wood trim. The Bang & Olufsen sound system in here also has 19 speakers, and it sounds really good. So if you want that premium interior to go with this, near $90,000 price tag, the e-Tron certainly won't disappoint. So of course the sloping roof on this vehicle has to take away some space somewhere, and you're going to notice that when you hop into the back seat because you have to duck your head a little bit more because the roof line's a little bit lower on this car. But at 5'7", it's not terribly hateful for me. Getting back here, Audi says there's around 37 inches of legroom back here, which is actually not bad. There's a completely flat or nearly flat floor back here, which is nice. You have 4-zone automatic climate control. You have 2 USB ports. You have rear seat air vents. You have heated back seats back here, but no cooled seats, along with these 2, netted mat pockets. Now, in terms of the comfort, once you're back here, you actually have a good amount of headroom for me. And if you fold down this little armrest here, you can see there are some cup holders. There's a little bit more storage over here. And I really love this Monaco blue leather interior, which only again comes on this Edition 1 model. So like most vehicles that are built off of a dedicated EV platform, when you open up the hood of the e-tron, you actually do get a frunk. Now the frunk in this vehicle is pretty small, and as you can see, like a normal internal combustion car, you can see there are some, things you can access here that Audi could have done a better job with kind of covering up, obviously. But when you open up this little compartment here, this is what is the frunk of this car. It's definitely a lot smaller than what you're going to find in a lot of Tesla products. In fact, it barely fits the charge cable, which, by the way, this charge cable I really like because, as you can see here, Audi gives you the option to either use a standard 110 or the upgraded level 2, which is a 240. You can basically pull this out from the charger here and just replace it with whatever one you'd like. You're going to want to do a level 2 charge because on a level 2 charge, this thing will take about 10 hours to charge versus on this, it'll probably take around 36 hours to charge. So you're going to want to do that. Now, underneath all of this here, you're going to find twin electric motors. You've got one in the rear, which is the stronger electric motor, and one in the front. When you combine the output of the two engines, the two motors, it gives you Audi's Quattro on-demand all-wheel drive system and up to 355 horsepower. Now, if you guys go into the sport mode, it'll give you an overboost function that lasts about 8 seconds to give you 402 horsepower and up to 490 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are pretty much competitive with what you're going to find from the base models of Teslas. Audi says 0 to 60 performance in the sport mode is 5.5 seconds. You'll reach a top speed of 124 miles an hour. That performance number is pretty behind Tesla's. The base Model X, for example, will do 0 to 60 about a second quicker. And if you guys spend the money on a Model Y, especially a Model Y Performance, that'll do it in 3.5 seconds. So Audi has a solution to that. There is an e-tron S that was just introduced for Europe. Isn't coming yet to America confirmed. However, that'll have a tri-motor system with an additional 100 horsepower, and you should get to 60 in around 4.5 seconds. So Audi, please be sure to bring that e-tron S. Now, if you guys must have the e-tron now, remember this is an electric car, so it all goes out through a single speed transmission, and towing capacity is not bad. This is rated to tow actually 4,000 pounds. Now, in terms of consumption, that's the big news for 2020 on the Sportback and 2021. Audi improved the range of the 95 kilowatt hour battery pack to 218 miles. That is not bad. However, keep in mind, most of the competitors offer an extra 100 miles of range or so, especially when you guys look at a Tesla Model X, which offers around 350 miles of range. Now, the regular e-tron actually gets slightly better range, 222 miles for 2021, which is better than this, which surprised me because technically the Sportback is supposed to be the one that's a little bit more aerodynamic. The e-tron itself is rated to get 77 mpge, which is actually a little bit less than most of the competitors. Now, of course, this is an all-electric SUV with a bunch of heavy batteries at the bottom of the floor, and this thing weighs around 5,700 pounds. Now, of course, Audi is very much known as a brand that likes to make very strong leaps into technology. They are very much known for offering some of the best tech in their cabins in the industry, and also love the styling of the brand. They have very strong build quality that you can find throughout their products. But electrification is still kind of new to Audi. I mean, yes, they had the e-tron A3 from a few years ago, and then of course the regular e-tron SUV I drove last year. Liked the car, but I was kind of disappointed with it because it just didn't have the acceleration and range that I'm used to from driving a lot of Tesla vehicles. So now that we're in the e-tron Sportback, this is kind of like, I guess, chapter 2 of Audi's electric playbook. I mean, the one that I'm really waiting for is the e-tron GT, which is the same platform as the Porsche Taycan. I still have not driven a Taycan yet as of this filming, which frustrates me. But first, setting off in the Sportback model, everything that I loved about the regular e-tron is here. You've got this very comfortable ride quality with the air suspension. Even though I've got the 21-inch wheels on my particular tester here, it's just a very quiet car. It's a really nice place to spend time. There is so little noise in here. In fact, all you do hear is very small amounts of road noise and wind noise, which you have to be really listening to it to hear it. And you also hear the kind of whiny noise, the futuristic noises that this car makes when you're kind of cruising along at low speeds to let pedestrians know that this car is moving around. You also do get Audi's regen braking system. They're controlled from these paddle shifters here. There's 3 different levels, which when it's on its strongest level, it actually does a pretty good job of braking the car, slowing it down to near Tesla-like levels of regen braking. The problem is, as soon as I touch the throttle, it turns itself off, and I want Audi to actually make it so it stays on all the time because it allows for complete one-pedal driving, which is what I'm looking for when I'm driving an EV. But when you're just kind of cruising along, this is a very nice luxury SUV that you can see out of well. It just rides so well. It's so damn quiet. The seats, I'm sitting here getting a massage, and it's fantastic. And really, this is the whole reason why you wanted to buy an Audi over a Tesla, because you do notice just the increased levels of luxury in here that you just don't get in a Tesla product. Now there is still a fair amount of disappointment for me when I put my foot down from a stop, because I like the whirring noise that this thing makes, but, ooh, it's quick. It is definitely quick. It feels like a 5.5 second car to 60, and you really have to put your foot all the way to the floor past that click point, and you feel the torque of this thing. It kind of just shoves you back in the seat. But, you know, for the money that this car is I expected more. Audi's got an e-Tron S that they just introduced in Europe. It goes on sale at the end of this year. Hasn't been confirmed yet for the US. That will up the power up by nearly 100, and we should get 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. That model can't come soon enough, because this powertrain is pretty much on par with a base model Tesla X, basically. The Tesla Model X will probably do 0 to 60 in around 5-ish seconds, maybe under 5. So it's actually a little bit slower. The S version of this car, like I said, will do it in 4.5. That's what Audi says, which is probably the one that I want to drive. That introduces a third electric motor. So we've got 2 at the rear, 1 at the front, to give you a tri-motor system and additional horsepower. But you know what, if you've never driven a Tesla product, or you are coming from just a gas version of an Audi, this is going to feel really special. It's going to feel like the future. It has instantaneous thrust as soon as my foot goes to the floor. It's so quiet. You can feel the suspension kind of buckle down because of all that torque. And you know what? This, for an SUV that weighs, 4,500 pounds, this thing hides its mass very well. Audi has tuned the Sportback to be a little bit sportier versus the regular e-Tron. The steering offers a pretty good amount of feedback and heft to it, especially in dynamic mode. When you put it into its dynamic mode as well, the suspension gets noticeably stiffer, and this car is just a joy to drive when you're looking to have some fun. But it's also just a joy to sit here and cruise while I'm sitting here getting a massage, while it's just a very quiet place to spend time. I've got this air ionizer that's wafting a perfume scent into the cabin, which just smells fantastic. It just all adds to that level of quality and luxury that you would expect from Audi, that you expect from most German brands. Now, in terms of the driver assistance tech in this car, the Edition 1 that I'm driving has basically the full Audi stop and go with traffic jam assist, adaptive cruise control. It's got lane keep assist. It is a step behind some of the competitors, where this car will not change lanes for you. In Europe, Audi has almost like a level 3 almost autonomy system, which isn't legal yet in America. We also don't get the matrix design LED headlights, which allow you to show those graphics on the street or against the wall, which is again part of the US and their crappy regulations. Foot is to the floor here, and you do feel that it does pick up speed nicely. It just doesn't have the drama that I'm looking for. I mean, if you're going to take away my engine noise, yes, 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds is perfectly fine, but for the money, Audi, where's my e-Tron S? Please, please bring the e-Tron S to the US, make it priced fairly reasonable, and even introduce an RS model. There's no reason why Audi shouldn't be able to, put in Porsche Taycan levels of acceleration, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. That's what we expect from a luxury brand, especially an EV luxury car. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, of course, is the range of this vehicle, because Audi says 218 miles of range in this thing, which the trip computer was showing 237 when they first dropped this off when I had it fully charged. Remember, Audi only limits you to use about 86.5 kilowatt hours of the battery. We've got a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack, so it's only using about 90%. I imagine if Audi allowed us to completely fully charge this thing, the fully charged range should come closer to 300. And in my real world of testing, I noticed that the e-Tron actually gets slightly better EPA numbers versus what the EPA says it'll do. I was easily getting the 218 miles. Actually, it was a little bit more even with the AC on. Now, in contrast, the last Tesla that I had, my Model 3 Performance, was rated to do like 310 miles, but in reality, it was getting around 240, 230 in the real world. This car will realistically do around 220 in the real world if you really want to push your luck and get this thing, down to a complete 0 for charge. And remember, Audi gives you the 2 charging ports on either sides of the vehicle, which is a unique feature. I love that feature, although I think the Porsche Taycan has that feature as well. And you can also do the quick charge for this car, where it will basically allow you to plug up to a 150 kilowatt hour charger and get 30 minutes of charge and get several hundreds of miles of range back into the vehicle. Or you can also do a level 2 charge, which should take around 10.5 hours to fully recharge this thing. So just like the regular e-Tron SUV, the Sportback brings everything that I liked about that model into a much sleeker design. If you guys are looking for an electric SUV that actually has an interior that feels like a luxury car, take a look at one of these, because between all the interior lighting, the materials, the technology, the massaging seats, this is a really nice car to daily drive and spend time with, especially if you guys are coming from a gas-powered Audi SUV. I think that's how Audi planned the e-Tron. They wanted a lot of owners, they expect a lot of owners to be trading up from a Q5 or Q7 into this, because if you've never driven a Tesla or other electric cars, the e-Tron will seriously impress you. It's got a really amazing ride quality. It's got pretty good acceleration, 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds with the overboost function. It's gonna feel fast for a lot of you out there who've never driven an electric car. And the range at 218 miles, I saw in my real world of testing, around that, you actually could get a little bit more if you're gonna drive this thing a lot more economically. It also surprisingly rides and handles well for a vehicle that weighs almost 6,000 pounds. But really, when you start looking at the e-Tron, even the Sportback, and a lot of its electric competitors. Let's take a look at Tesla, because we can't talk about an electric car and not mention Tesla. The Tesla Model Y, for example, is around $40,000 to start for the base model, which technically isn't for sale yet. A performance model you can get for around 70 grand, which will do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. It'll give you around 300 miles of range. The e-Tron, for example, will do 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. It gives you 218 miles of range. That's behind Tesla in terms of performance by a second to 60 and about 100 miles short of range. Now, of course, Audi has a solution for the e-Tron S, which will improve the performance to 4.5 seconds. We don't know range of that model yet. Remember, they are limiting the usage of the 95 kilowatt hour battery pack to around 86.5 kilowatt hours for longevity and reliability. But really, I think Audi is missing the mark here in terms of what an EV buyer is looking for, because they obviously get the luxury right, they obviously get the build quality right, but they are missing the crazy acceleration if you've driven other EVs and that long range, which 218 miles is good for most people. But let's be honest here, most people who are driving an electric car really want to see the most range and the best performance. I think that's the most important thing for a lot of EV buyers. So until Audi finally upgrades the battery to give us over 300 miles of range and improves the 0 to 60 to under 5 seconds, really the e-Tron is a really great luxury SUV, but is it a great electric SUV? You might be better served at its competition. So if you guys are looking to purchase a 2021 e-Tron Sportback, how much is it gonna cost? Well, the 2020 model, which technically isn't available yet, or isn't available anymore, starts at around $77,400. It's about $3,000 more expensive versus the regular e-Tron. Now, of course, Audi made a significant price cut to the e-Tron and e-Tron Sportback for 2021. They dropped the price by nearly $9,000 with a new base premium trim. So now, for 2021, this car starts at $69,100. The regular e-Tron starts at around $66,500. So that's a pretty significant price cut. It makes this car now cheaper than a Tesla Model X, which I think is a very important price point. So I'm glad Audi decided to do that. Now, of course, this one here, being the fully loaded Edition 1, stickers for a little over $90,000. And for $90,000, this is, again, Tesla Model X money that doesn't necessarily give you the range or the performance, but you get way more luxury from a prestigious German brand. So if that's very important for you, you're gonna wanna take a look at this. But I think here's the problem with the e-Tron Sportback's pricing, especially this fully loaded model. At 90 grand, I expect more range and I expect more performance. And I think a lot of EV buyers also feel the same. So if Audi offered the e-Tron S at $90,000, I think that would be a really, strong value. But again, we don't have the e-Tron S yet in America. We don't know the pricing of that vehicle just yet. But if you guys are in the market for an all-electric SUV and you demand the best build quality, the most luxury from a reputable German brand, I think the e-Tron and the e-Tron Sportback are one of the best ones out there. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 e-Tron Sportback. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.